And welcome back. My name is Jack Hunter, also known as the Southern Avenger. I am your host for this portion of the Common Sense Money Bomb for the 10th Amendment Center here today. I encourage people to go to commonsensemoneybomb.com. If you go to the top of the page, you'll find information on where to donate. And I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to introduce my next guest. He is Mr. Mike Church of Sirius XM's Patriot 144 channel, which you can find on XM 166. I am lucky enough on occasion to fill in for Mike Church when he hosts his program. He is my favorite conservative talk host in the country, bar none. And ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Mike Church. Are you with us, Mike?
I'm here.
Good to talk to you today, sir. How are things?
Things are well. How are things with the Common Sense Money Bomb?
Well, we're raising lots of money, a significant amount, so far, and we have a long way to go. I encourage people to go to commonsensemoneybomb.com. And, Mike, I got to tell you, for those of you who aren't familiar with Mike Church, and I encourage you to subscribe to Sirius, it is the best show out there. If you want to talk about what we've been discussing here today, the 10th Amendment, Thomas Jefferson, the founders, decentralizing government, you can't find a better show than Mr. Mike Church and what he does there on Sirius Patriot 144. But, Mike, I got to tell you, I think you and I met for the first time at CPAC last year, if you can remember that long, hazy night.
I can remember that.
Well, I can remember parts of it, and that tells you what a good time we had. You emailed me, or your producer did today, and I haven't got a chance to email you back because I've been busy, of course, with this. But I think you and I are going to be joining each other at CPAC this year for a Young Americans for Liberty event, joined by Justin Amash, the new elected Tea Party congressman, and a few others, where we're going to be talking about issues like this. I'm looking forward to that. I assume you can make it, Mike. I hope so.
Yeah, I'll be at CPAC, and I just found out today that I was invited to be on that panel with the great Jack Hunter, the Southern Avenger, and only more than happy to make the trip to D.C. and hope that there's a couple other things that we can do while we're there too, and maybe even offer folks a little sneak premiere of our next movie, The Road to Independence, the movie, which is really a dynamite piece of work about the founding and about the struggle for independence. Tells a real story that usually does not make it into the fairy tales.
Yeah, well, your movie before that, The Spirit of 76, I often recommend to people because you understand the Constitution better. We've been talking about the 10th Amendment today, but the entire Constitution you understand better once you look at the ratification process,
right,
how it came into being, and it demonstrates how far we've strayed from what the Constitution was supposed to mean. Your Spirit of 76 not only is educational in the sense that it lets people, it clues them in as to actually what the Constitution is all about, but it is entertaining. I would show people who aren't necessarily interested in political issues or how our government operates The Spirit of 76 in a heartbeat because it is fun to watch. I think it's great, and I'm sure the next movie, The Road to Independence, will be along the same lines, I assume.
Yeah, well, if you were entertained by The Spirit of 76, then The Road to Independence is going to win Oscars and Golden Globes and all sorts of things in your mind because this is actually not a run-of-the-mill documentary, because it's not a documentary at all. We started out trying to make a documentary, and about a third of the way into it, just committed to the idea that, you know what, why do we always have to make documentaries about founders? I mean, and the script was reviewed by Kevin Gutzman, who I think you're going to have on today, and so it has the historian's seal of approval. So it is astoundingly and to near perfection, solid, right on in its historical presentation. But there's no narrator, and it's not a documentary. It's a movie. It's almost like an action kind of thriller there, because that struggle for independence was a real exciting and thrilling part of history that is just never told. And I hope by doing this, not only do we educate a lot of people and entertain a lot of people, but also show again that you could tell the story of the founders and the founding and make it exciting and entertaining on film, and hopefully many more copycats will follow after that.
Absolutely. Well, since we're talking about the 10th Amendment and the Constitution, let me ask you, Mike, as a conservative talk host with millions of listeners, what do you see? I mean, you've been doing the conservative talk host thing a lot longer than me. What do you see with the advent of the Tea Party and just people really getting up in arms about Obamacare, this latest thing with the TSA? Do you see more hope for sort of getting power away from Washington, D.C., decentralizing things, and sort of a new birth of the 10th Amendment sort of issues at the forefront of American politics?
Well, That's a question that has many moving parts to it, and while you can say that you're encouraged by the fact that people now know what the text of the 10th Amendment is, they're animated by the prospect of what the great Tom Woods' book is written about, nullification. You could also call it interposition, and about the states getting back involved in their government and what have you here. The other side of that coin is that I still don't see the clamor for the what Jefferson would call the decentralizing tendency. We still haven't recaptured the decentralizing tendency, and I think that's the thing that's lacking here. And what I mean by that is there's still way too much hope, faith, energy, passion, money, you name it, thrown into trying to fix Congress. I disagree with a lot of my conservative colleagues, or libertine colleagues, as I like to start calling them now, that I don't think Congress can be fixed. I think it's too big, it's too unruly. I don't think that there's enough representatives. 435 does not adequately represent 310 million people. And I think that really the only way that you can fix this or heal this monster that we have created on our since we injected it with the Frankenstein jolts of electricity, which was the introduction of Wilsonian nation building and what have you back in the early part of the last century, is from the outside. And we got a lot of work to do, Jack. But I do see some signs of hope there in states like yours in South Carolina. I think some states are being led, or people are running for office that see that it is the fact that Washington, D.C. exists as it does today, and that it consumes too much, has too much power, wields too big of a stick, and does not take its oath, the limitation placed on it by the Constitution seriously, that they're going to have to do the heavy lifting. And they're going to have to be the ones that are going to have to take the 10th Amendment and their oath to it. And let's be clear about this. Guys like Michael Bolden and Kurt Wallace and you and Tom Woods and Kevin Gutzman and many others whose names I left out, and I apologize for that, have been talking about this for a long time, have I think done a good job of sowing the seeds. But we need legislators to take the next step. And the next step is for state houses to actually start passing affirmative acts, not resolutions, acts, like the state of Virginia did, saying, sorry, federal government, how about no? No, we're not going to let you do this. We don't care if you take our highway funds away from us. We're setting our alcohol blood limit at 0.12. We don't care if you take our Medicaid funds away from us. We're not going to collect the taxes to pay your Medicaid anymore. Now, how do you like that? And I think that until the states get serious about their oath to the 10th Amendment, because that's a two-way street, Jack. It's not just getting Congress to heal and obey that. The states have got to obey it, too, because, the dirty little secret, and you know this as well as I, because I've heard you talk about it, all too many state houses, way too many governors are only too happy to let Congress do the dirty work and to pass these so-called mandates that the states then have to implement, and then the state has to take the block grant. The states have voluntarily given way too much power up, and I think that that's the next stage of this. The battle needs to be fought in the states. Republicans did had the best run at state houses and governorships since, I think, 1918 or 1928 was the biggest turnover.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but they're going to have to deliver the goods on that, and that goes down to your listeners and the followers of the We Refuse movement doing what I think that they've been doing, but staying on it and getting on their state legislators and saying, stop with your resolutions, start passing acts and defend us.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I know we only have you for a little bit of time, and once again, we're talking to Mike Church of Sirius XM, the Sirius channel Patriot 144, XM 166, my favorite conservative talk host. And speaking of that realm, Mike, I mentioned when I was interviewing Michael Bolton earlier with the 10th Amendment Center, and you were just mentioning that Congress may be too large and unruly to do anything with, that we need to start looking at local or state solutions. It is interesting to the extent to which our fellow conservative talk hosts seem to sort of have this government centralized mentality. And what I mean by that is you will hear all day long certain national talk hosts talk about getting behind John Boehner or Mitch McConnell to repeal Obamacare, that we're going to do something to repeal it, which would be wonderful, wherever you can fight the fight, more the better. But you hear very little, with your show being one of the sole exceptions, about all the different state fights against Obamacare, attempting to nullify it. Don't you think that's indicative of just how attached even they, our fellow conservatives, are to Washington, D.C.?
Absolutely, they're attached to it. To be quite frank, and I don't mean any disrespect by this, because I'm sure that's a healthy way to make a living, and that's fine, but there are an awful lot of party hacks that are in the talk radio business. And as I said, I'm not complaining. I don't cast any aspersions. If that's what you do, that's fine. It's a free country. You're free to do that. But I think that the disservice is done because they're not presenting their audience with a full spate of alternatives. And I think that the real folly is, look, if this could not be done with the landslide election of Ronald Reagan and consecutive elections, if this could not be done with the Gingrich Revolution and then the absolute control of the House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the presidency in 2000 all the way up to 2004 or 2006, then I don't think it can be done inside the Beltway. I mean, you can dream about it and postulate about it, and we've got Jim DeMint, we've got Rand Paul and all that. Now, that's true. Thank God we have them. But they need as much help as I think they need outside help, and that outside help did not come in those previous incarnations of Republican, shall we say, conservative insurgencies. And I think that to dismantle this thing from within is just an impossible task. I think it's been proven. What's the definition of insanity, Jack? Doing the same thing over and over again,
right.
Expecting a different result. I mean, people are putting their passions into this, and I just think that their passions would be better directed in other endeavors, like maybe an Article 5 convention, which is a good start, and at least would get people talking about the 10th Amendment and why an Article 5 convention is needed to propose some amendments to the Constitution. If Congress won't heal, well, then we're going to force it to heal. There's an awful lot of blame to go around. You can't just give it all to Congress. There's an awful lot of people that consume $3.7 trillion worth of federal government largesse. Fingers can be pointed in an awful lot of directions.
That's absolutely true. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you being with us again. I encourage people to go to commonsensemoneybomb.com, go to the top of the page, find the information to donate. Already raised a lot of funds. We need to raise a lot more. And, Mike, as always, it's a pleasure speaking with you. And, sir, I'll be seeing you in about 4 weeks at CPAC. Looking forward to that.
See you at CPAC, if not sooner, Jack.
Absolutely. That is Mike Church. Take care, Mike. That is the great Mike Church of Sirius XM. You can find him on Patriot Channel on Sirius 144 or XM 166, and on occasion you might even hear me filling in for him. It's a great program. If you want to know more about the 10th Amendment, the founders of the Constitution, there is not a better show out there than the great Mike Church. More to come on this when we come back.